And so what about your mental health and your emotional health? There's a certain aspect to that too. But I was working on myself for a while, doing the tools, doing the exercises, doing the healing work. And so if you come to a hypnotherapist, if you come to me and to quit smoking, you're going to quit smoking. Not because I'm uh, taking control over you and brainwashing you or anything. I'm not. You're going to quit smoking because you want to, and you're
Mm.
ready for that change, and you are powerful and you are strong enough to make that change. So when you heal that hurt and pain, that's great. But sort of like nature abhors a vacuum, you pull out all that anxiety and that anger. It's like, well, what do you want to fill yourself up with? Just because you pull out the anger and you heal the wounds and you heal the hurt and pain and the anxiety is gone. I think because of people's maybe past experience with talk therapy or maybe some healing modalities, they think, well, maybe I'm just stuck with this.
Mm.
And the issue with some of these modalities is you look outside of yourself for healing, and sometimes you need to do that.
Hello, team. Welcome to today's episode. We're going to explore the theme of mind mastery for achieving the life that you want. There's this famous person by the name of Albert Einstein who once said that you can't solve a problem from the same consciousness that created it. You must learn to see the world anew. And as our guest shares, in other words, you can't see or you can't create your new life with the same mind and thinking patterns that created the life you have now. It's a powerful insight and it serves as our foundation for our conversation. And we're going to dive into the art of reshaping your thought patterns and the consciousness to break free of the limitations of the past and craft that future that's aligned with your deepest desires and aspirations. Now, you're probably sitting there listening to me and thinking, man, that's way above your pay grade. So you'd be pretty right about that. We're fortunate that we have Craig Meriwether with us. He's a certified clinical hypnotherapist and medical support specialist. Um, Craig's going to guide us through this discussion. Craig, welcome to the ET Project. Great to have the opportunity to connect as well as to learn about this critical subject.
Yeah, Wayne, I really appreciate you inviting me onto the show. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I know we've kind of go back and forth with family issues and schedules and
Mm.
calendars and things. So I'm glad we're finally here and have it able
Uh,
to sit down and talk because
yeah.
it's really interesting you brought up that quote because it's a really powerful quote. And what's interesting about this work is oftentimes the real issue of what's keeping us maybe blocked from the success we're looking for, or blocked from even moving forward, or blocked from gaining the health we want, or
Mm.
just maybe the hurt and pain we've been sitting with, or that malaise, or the anxiety, or the depression, or the anger is oftentimes maybe something we're not even aware of, something that happened when we were a child. And so the consciousness that created it may have been the consciousness of a child.
Yeah.
And certainly you're not going to use the consciousness of a child to heal this. But imagine how much more powerful you are where you sit as an adult with all the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding you have. And maybe, yes, there's some issues in life that you want to take care of. Maybe you're not exactly where you want to be in your relationships and business and health, in your finances, but imagine how much more wisdom you have just in how the world works than when you were a child.
Mm.
And oftentimes we create these instructions on how to protect ourselves
Yeah.
through a great deal of trauma, or maybe just being bullied at school or being embarrassed or humiliated. But sometimes people go through awful trauma, or maybe a natural disaster, or maybe a car accident or something. And we install certain instructions, certain suggestions on how to feel safe in our world. And sometimes, if somebody has grown up in an abusive household or not very safe household, the best way to have kept us safe was a was to hide,
Mm.
or to dim our light, if you will, or to keep ourselves small. And that was the best thing you could have done when you were a child.
Right.
Especially if you're in a really angry household and shining your light focus the attention on you. You don't want that. So you want to keep yourself small, keep yourself hidden. That's a great way to keep yourself safe as a child.
Mm,
But that's not going to work when you're an adult.
right.
But if you're still using the consciousness, if you're still using the instructions you set up as a child, why would anything change? You can't change anything until you change the instructions, that consciousness that is creating maybe the blocks to moving forward, or the
Mm,
blocks to health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, spiritual health.
yeah.
And so it's a great way to start this conversation
It is,
because
Craig. That's a fantastic setup for our conversation today, and we're going to definitely dive deeper into the things that you've touched on there. What I would like to do, if we don't mind, we'll just back up a little bit. And most of our listeners are not sitting in America, and you're in a location that is probably not so familiar to many people outside of the States, which is the state of Arizona. I wonder if we could do a little geography lesson as a
sure.
starting point. Whereabouts are you in relation to the map of America and specifically the city?
So I live in the southwest of America. When people hear Arizona, they think of maybe Phoenix
Mm,
or Tucson, and they think, oh my God, it gets to be 110, 120 degrees. And yes, it does down south, especially near the Mexican border.
mm,
But I live up in the mountains, and I live in a small town called Flagstaff. And if anybody's familiar with Route 66, that famous highway from Chicago that goes from Chicago and moves through middle
mm.
America and all the way to Santa Monica, California, Route 66 drives right through Flagstaff. And we're about 7,000 feet in American uh,
Yeah.
terms. And we're about 90 minutes south of the Grand Canyon, about 40 minutes east of Sedona, Arizona, if people know that. But we're pretty close to what people call the Four Corners. And the
Mm,
Four Corners is a beautiful region of America that's really associated with Native American culture, Navajo culture, Hopi culture. And the Four Corners are the corners of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona.
okay.
And it's a beautiful high desert area, and it gets cold, cold up here in Flagstaff. Again, we're about a mile up, and we had, as we're recording this in mid-November, we had snow a couple weeks ago. There's snow up on the mountains. We have this beautiful mountain range, one of the sacred mountains of the area, and there's still a bunch of snow on top of the
Mm,
mountain at 12,000 feet. So it's a different climate than what people think of when they think of Arizona, because they think of saguaros and cactuses and desert and
exactly. Yeah.
Gila monsters and tarantulas and scorpions and things like this. But we are up in the mountains. We are in one of the largest pine forests in the world, and we have deer and elk and bobcats and bears, and it's a beautiful place to live.
Mm. How far away is the Rockies, the mountain range from you?
I think to drive from here to maybe the very edge of the Rockies would be maybe 10 hours.
Okay.
The edge of the Rockies end up in northern New Mexico, like the very, very
Mm,
tippy bottom of it,
yep.
end up in the at the top of New Mexico. So we'd have to kind of move over to the right and up a little bit to reach the bottom of the Rockies. But we're pretty, other than the beautiful mountains where we're at, the San Francisco Peaks, as they're called here, it's pretty flat.
Right.
And that's why it's considered one of the sacred mountains to the native population around here, because it's the
Okay.
only mountain pretty much around. It's one of the four sacred mountains, and
Mm,
so it's very important uh, to their culture and to their spirituality, and to I guess ours as well
yeah.
here in modern day. But it's pretty flat, but we're pretty close to um, Monument Valley. A lot of people probably seen these beautiful red rock monoliths. I don't even know what you call them, huge rocky mountainous-like uh, monoliths of red rock, and you'll see them a lot in westerns,
Hmm.
Especially back in the old days, the John Wayne movies and things, they'd film a
Right.
lot out here. And so it's a really beautiful place. We get the four seasons, and it's a lot of snow shoveling sometimes in the winter, but
Yeah.
get used to it.
Very nice. Very nice. So we know where you are now in relation to definitely a different vision that I had of Arizona.
Yeah.
I can assure you. Um, what inspired you to get into hypnotherapy and the whole medical scene? Like you're sitting in the hills and
Yeah.
hypnotherapy just popped into your mind.
Not as unfortunately not as easily as that. It was really through my own uh hurt and pain I was going through in
Hmm.
my life. I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety growing up, especially in my teenage years. And this is back in the 1980s. So, of course, the internet's not there for easy research and discovering tools and techniques. They didn't even have those SSRI drugs like Prozac and things like that. Those didn't come out till the late 1990s.
Right.
So it was just kind of one of those things you dealt with. You struggle with it, and it was sort of just like wearing a uncomfortable coat that didn't
Hmm.
fit very well. You just maintained and carried on because what else could you do? I mean, there's I guess talk therapy and
Yeah.
whatever book you could find in the library or the bookstore or something. But, a teenage boy is not going to do any of that kind of stuff, and
Hmm.
you just carried on, and it just seemed like, well, this is the way it is. Certainly, most everybody else feels like this too. And it's sort of like describing color to a blind person. How do you describe just the peace of mind and body and just feeling joy and happiness if you don't experience that?
Hmm.
And so just kind of maintained and moved through life as I went to university in the 90s and just kind of, got married and building a life. And it was really the birth of my son in the year 2001 that I really, you know, got that centeredness of mind to think I got to do something about this. And luckily at that point, the internet's out there, had been, out there for a few years. And so there's information you can research, certainly a lot more techniques, a lot of information about the medications that are out there, a lot of
Hmm.
different exercises and techniques and tools and strategies to learn. And so I just started working on myself, started doing the heavy lifting. And of course, we moved from Santa Cruz, California to Flagstaff. So there was a big move of new careers and jobs and new baby and all these things. So life would interrupt. So it was definitely an on again, off again kind of process, as well as some trial and error
Hmm.
of what's going to work for me. And but I kept at it. There's a certain relentlessness to this work, even when you feel good. I mean, just like your physical body, you just don't get to go to a personal trainer once and work out twice at the gym and you're in great shape for the rest of your life. There's a relentlessness to your physical health with what you eat, with what you put in your body, what you're drinking, on top of the exercising you're doing. And so, what about your mental health, your emotional health? There's a certain aspect to that too. But I was working on myself for a while, doing the tools, doing the exercises, doing the healing work. And one day I woke up and was just kind of had a lazy morning, lying in bed, and I was thinking about myself. And I was like, you know what? I haven't felt depression and anxious in a long time. And I realized, I had reset my nervous system. I'd sort
Hmm.
of, downloaded a new operating system, if you will, because I'd changed how my brain was working. I'd rewired my brain.
Hmm.
Probably literally, if you had taken a picture of my brain before I
Yeah.
started the work and after work, you'd probably see new wiring, new neurons firing together and connecting together. And I realized I had this toolbox full of tools. And one of the tools was hypnotherapy because when I was doing the work, I was reading the books, I was reading articles, blog posts, watching interviews of people. And oftentimes they'd have the bullet points at the end of the book or end of the article. Here's what you can do to change your life. And usually they were different, but there was one that was always the same. They always mentioned hypnotherapy because what it is, it's not somebody else trying to figure you out and analyze you and telling you what's wrong with you and here's how you fix. You're fixing yourself. And that's the big misconception
Mhm.
about therapeutic hypnosis is that there's nobody's taking control of you. Nobody's turning you into some sort of voodoo zombie in some sort
Right.
of trance state to make you go, I don't know, assassinate the prime minister or whatever, or rob a bank. Nobody's taking control of you. They're giving you back control because really control is already gone. If you're getting anxious, if you're literally changing your physiology, your heart rate, you know, blood supply moving to the big muscle of your arms to fight your way out of this dangerous situation, creating adrenaline and cortisol, that's a lot of work for your mind and brain and body to do. And if it's doing it automatically, you're not even sure why, you're out of control already.
Mm.
You're basically already hypnotized. You've hypnotized to literally change how your body is operating to an unconscious threat in your environment. Maybe you know exactly what the threat is. But a lot of times this anxiousness or this anger, this overwhelm, this worry comes at us and it drops in our lap. We don't know what is happening. We don't know why we're angry over something or why we're feeling so anxious. So really you've hypnotized yourself already, quite possibly as a child, and how to relate to your world. And with hypnotherapy, it's not that I fix anybody. I'm not going to fix you. And hypnotherapy in and of itself is not going to fix you. You're going to fix yourself. You're going to get back control and you're going to heal the wounds and the hurt and the pain. Even if that was 50 years ago when you were a child, you're allowed to do that. And you can do it in a safe and gentle way, and you can do it rather quickly. This is not long-term talk therapy kind of situation. That kind of stuff can be very useful, very healing, very helpful, but that's not what this is. Change happens in an instant. Now, there may be some lead up to that healing and to that change,
Mhm.
maybe months, maybe years, but there will come a point where you say, it's time. I want to heal now. And change happens in an instant. Just as that, let's say somebody has encountered some trauma and some real deep hurt and pain growing up, just as that trauma, just as that anger and anxiety, that fear can be installed instantaneously,
Mhm.
maybe through abuse, maybe through a car accident, or there's refugees in war, there's natural disasters. Just as that trauma can be installed instantaneously, why wouldn't you be able to heal it instantaneously? I mean, who told you that you couldn't? And what is it to their benefit that it takes you 70, 80, 90 sessions over 2 years to
Mm.
heal this? And so, really, this is giving you back control. I can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. That's why smoking cessation is not a 100% guarantee because I can't make anybody quit smoking if they don't want to quit.
Right.
Sometimes, husbands may get forced into smoking cessation sessions because their wife doesn't want the smoking anymore. The expense, the smell, it's gross, it's disgusting. Then, not alone the health issues,
Mm.
or the other way around. Husband wants the wife to quit smoking. If that person doesn't want to quit smoking, they're not quitting. They don't want to. So it's really all about your intention. What do you want? And even if you don't understand what the problem is, it can be as simple as I want healing. I want healing from this anxiety. I want healing from this anger. Perfect. Because we're not using the conscious mind, we're using the unconscious to
Mm.
do this healing work. And just as, I can't, make anybody quit smoking if they don't want to quit smoking. I can't go into Las Vegas casinos or comedy clubs or bars or whatever and snappy, wavy, make everybody quit smoking. I can't go into prisons and hypnotize everybody to be upstanding, law-abiding citizens. I can't hypnotize Elon Musk to write me $1 billion check. And the reason why I don't have $1 billion check from Elon Musk is because he doesn't want to write me one. And so if you come to a hypnotherapist, if you come to me and to quit smoking, you're going to quit smoking. Not because I'm taking control over you and brainwashing you or anything. I'm not. You're going to quit smoking because you want to, and you're
Mm.
ready for that change, and you are powerful, and you are strong enough to make that change. I, however, cannot, you know, give you suggestions to go rob a bank. later that afternoon and we'll split the money because you don't want to rob a bank. That's against your morals and against your ethics. You don't want to go to jail. So this is all about your intention. And of course, a lot of people know hypnosis from the shows they may see. Here in the United States, we have Las Vegas, and they have a lot of those hypnotist shows or comedy clubs, or people probably maybe seen on YouTube or late night talk shows or something. And they see people up on a stage and they're singing like Elvis Presley, or they're dancing like Michael Jackson, or pretending they're on a really steep roller coaster, or they're clucking like a chicken or barking like a dog, or whatever the skit is. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to do it. Now, that's not my idea of a good time. It's not something I want to do. I'm guessing, Wayne, it's not what you want to do, and probably a lot of your listeners is not what they want to do. But there are people out there who think that's really fun.
Right.
It's a good time for them. They're exhibitionists, they're extroverts, they're entertainers. They want a silly video to put on YouTube to go viral. They just want to have a fun time. And watch them as they get off the stage after the end of the show. They have a big smile on their face
Mm,
because they had a great time. They wanted to do that because they volunteered to do it. Nobody's making them go up on that stage because that's not going to make for a good show. Las Vegas shows are really expensive.
mm,
Especially like even an unknown hypnotist doing a show in a unpopular casino is still like 70, $80. So they have to entertain the people. Otherwise, he's not going to have a show for very long. And so the show starts. The first thing that person does is ask for volunteers. Who wants to come up on stage and have a great time? You know, and there's people who go to that show specifically to hope that they get on stage,
mm,
and they wave their hands, pick me, pick me. They want to go up there. They want to be hypnotized to the point where they just have a fun time. And they do. And so their intention is to entertain. Their intention is to have fun and have a good time. So what if your intention is to heal?
mm,
Dr. Irving Kirsch wrote a lot of books about Prozac and the mind and things in the early 2000s. He called hypnotherapy a non-deceptive placebo, meaning, of course, we know about the placebo effect, mind healing the body. We see this when a pharmaceutical company is doing research on a new medication, maybe for high blood pressure medication, let's say. Half the group is going to get a placebo, the sugar pill, because they know mind will heal the body. They literally have to account for that in their research. Because let's say 30%, just for the process of this example, let's say 30% of the people getting the sugar pill lower their blood pressure to
mm,
levels that are significant. They did it through their mind. They were tricked into healing themselves. Let's say on the real medication, 40% get better. Well, they have to subtract 30% because maybe they got healthy and healed themselves through mind as well. So really only 10% got better through the medication, and that's good enough, and we'll put it on the market at $50 a pill.
mm,
And so, but nobody looks at, well, yeah, but more people got better through mind from healing themselves because there's no big money in that. There's no $1 billion payout
right.
for teaching people how to heal through mind. It's very satisfying. It's a very joyful and wonderful way to make a living and have a career in the world, but it doesn't make you rich.
Mm,
There's no way to patent somebody's subconscious mind. There's no way to copyright somebody's subconscious mind and their healing potential. So, pharmaceuticals it is.
right.
There was talking about Dr. Irving Kirsch, and since we talked about uh, mind and it is all about mental health and emotional health as we're talking about today. What was interesting about Dr. Kirsch's work is he wrote a bunch of books about the health effects of Prozac back in the early 2000s. And here in the United States, and probably the rest of the world, I'm guessing, but there's no law that says you have to publish your research. You can just do research. You don't have to publish it. It
Mm,
could be just for your own needs. But there's no law that says you have to publish your research. However, some of that Prozac research and those other SSRI drugs research was funded by the National Institutes of Health. That's a government agency. So our taxpayer money was being used to help fund research on how to, relieve depression. And so you can't just throw that away or shred it if it doesn't give you the results you want. You have to give it back to the government, and they put it in that big warehouse that you see at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark that goes on forever and ever. And so it's there. And so, and here in America, we have a process called the Freedom of Information Act,
Hmm.
meaning assuming it's not top secret, highly classified information about where we keep our nuclear weapons and all that, you can have that information as a citizen and as a taxpayer. So he did a Freedom of Information Act request for all that research that wasn't published.
Right.
And one of the research studies that wasn't published showed that the placebo effect group, that the group getting placebo, the control group, 90% cured their chronic depression all on their own, just using mind. And I'm not talking about Monday morning blues
Mm.
because your team lost yesterday or your TV show got canceled or it's Monday morning, you got to go back to work.
Right.
This is chronic depression of years. These are who they got into the trial. 90% healed themselves of their chronic depression because they were tricked into thinking they were taking a pill that was going to heal them.
Mm.
So there's a long kind of road back to Dr. Irving Kersh's uh, quote about hypnotherapy being a non-deceptive placebo. We're not going to trick you into doing this.
Right.
You're going to do it on purpose. And even if you're not even sure what the problem really is, that's fine because you do unconsciously. And that's what we're going to use, the unconscious. This isn't talk therapy. We're not going to spend weeks and weeks and months and years digging through your pain and your hurt, hoping to find the root cause.
Mm.
You know what the root cause is.
Right.
That's why you're armoring yourself with anxiety or anger or overwhelm or fear. You know why you're doing that. Okay,
Mm.
not consciously, but that's why we put that to, quiet that down. We
Yeah.
don't analyze, we don't use our logical mind. We use the unconscious mind, which is steeped in keeping you safe and protecting you. It just may be doing it with very unresourceful instructions, maybe set up by a child, but you know why you're doing it.
Mm.
Again, it takes great effort for your brain, your mind, your body to turn on the stress response, to create anger, to create anxiety and panic and fear. It creates great effort. I mean, your brain has to turn off the oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, all those feel-good chemicals, especially for having a good day,
Yeah.
to turn on that adrenaline and that cortisol and adrenaline. Probably heard the crazy stories of grandmothers lifting cars off of babies. That's adrenaline doing that. That's
Mm.
now being dumped into your bloodstream. Your brain is creating neural peptides, molecules that send the message of emotion to the cells of your body. That's why you feel like that.
Mm.
You can differentiate anger from anxiety, from depression to joy to happiness. These are literal molecules of fear, molecules of anxiety, hundreds of millions being dumped in your bloodstream. 300% more blood is moving to the big muscles of your arms to fight this threat. 300% more blood moving to big muscles of your legs to escape the threat. This
Mm.
has to come from somewhere. So it's turning down the power on your immune system. That's why people get sick when they're stressed, or the
Right.
volume
Right.
and of the power of their immune system is dropping. The power of their digestive system is being turned off. No need to digest that sandwich. So you have energy in 7 hours. You're in danger right now. That's why people get irritable bowel syndrome, IBS.
Mm.
And so that's huge effort. So you know why you're doing it. And because it just doesn't turn on automatically.
Mm.
It's a very rare case that somebody's anxious 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Very, very, very rare. There's something seriously wrong there. So most of us feel anxious here, there, maybe a lot,
Mm.
maybe angry a lot, maybe anxious a lot, but it's not all the time. So you know when to turn it on unconsciously, maybe not consciously. Maybe you're not aware, maybe you are, but you know why you're doing it. You're trying to protect yourself from something. And
Mm.
so if you know what the problem is unconsciously, that means you can fix it within the unconscious as well. Because you're the one who did it. And
I'm
it's not to
guessing.
blame the person, blame the child or anything, but it's not to blame the victim or say it was their fault. But if the child put on those instructions on how to keep themselves safe, did the child then well, not the child anymore, but the person can change it. They're the one who entered those instructions so they can change it. Becomes very empowering.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing there's a lot of people listening, myself included, who are surprised by a lot of what you said around the hypnotherapy,
Mm.
around our
Yeah.
intent at the beginning to act out. So I think you've probably opened some people's eyes and dispelled a lot of myths, perhaps
Yeah.
around the whole concept. I'm curious. You started at the beginning by talking about how you healed yourself.
Yeah.
Um, what sort of time frame are we talking about here? We're talking years, I'm guessing. Um,
Um, this in my own journey, uh, it took a while just because I didn't know what I was doing.
mm,
And so it was a lot of trial and error, is a lot of on and off again, where we moved from one town to another, well, from one state to another,
right.
starting new jobs, got a new baby, all this stuff. So it wasn't like I was spending, 5, 6 hours a day working on myself.
Mm,
But there's books to read, there's research to do,
sure,
and
sure.
and then trying these techniques and tools, and okay, that didn't work so well. I still feel awful. And then finally, everybody's talking about hypnotherapy, but it's probably the hypnotherapy that helped me change the most.
Right.
That's what helped me do the deep healing work I needed to do.
Mm,
But then there's kind of two parts to this. There's the deep healing work you want to do to heal that hurt and that pain. And then there's that strengthening and empowering work you want to do to increase the joy, the confidence, the happiness, the peace of mind and body. And there's a certain relentlessness to that kind of work
okay.
because, to master anything, whether it's getting a black belt in Taekwondo or Judo, whether it's learning a foreign language, it's learning a musical instrument, it's going to take practice.
Mm,
And just like your physical health, though, it's not just do it once or twice and then you're happy for the rest of your life. Life is full of challenges. Our
mm,
parents get older, our children get older. They go into school, they get out of school, they go to work, they get divorced. We get divorced. It's like there's life is full of challenges.
right.
And so there's a certain relentlessness, not only to your physical health, but to your mental health and your emotional health.
Mm,
I mean, the Dalai Lama still meditates every day. This guy's 90 years old, I think, at this point.
right.
And, being head of the Tibetan Buddhist spiritual community, has one got to have a lot of responsibility, but he's also been dealing with the issues of Tibet for the last 80 years or so.
Mm,
And, the Chinese government is still arresting his monks and torturing his monks and still bulldozing down his monasteries in Tibet and to build roads and buildings and probably primarily to give him the middle finger. And you read his books, he talks about the anger and the sorrow and despair. He's a human being. This is an extraordinary situation, a very sad situation, and it causes him grief and sorrow and despair and anger. But he doesn't want that to be who he is. So every day he practices loving kindness and compassion. 90 years old, and he's still practicing loving kindness and compassion because there's a relentlessness to this.
mm,
Yo-Yo Ma, considered one of the greatest cello players alive today, if not the greatest classical cello player alive today, practices every day.
mhm,
Any 10th degree black belt in martial arts is still practicing every day. Bruce Lee still practiced every day.
yeah,
No matter how masterful you get, there's still practice, there's still maintaining and strengthening and reinforcing.
mm,
And so there's two parts to this work. It's sort of like I heard this great metaphor or analogy, I guess, the other day on Instagram, and someone was saying, you have a glass of water, and if you put a teaspoon of dirt in your glass of water and mix it around, it doesn't matter how much sugar you put into that water, it's not going to taste very good. So you need to remove the dirt.
right.
And that's kind of key one. Even if you don't know what that hurt or pain is, again, it's within the subconscious mind.
Mm,
So if it's affecting you, it's because your mind, your body is trying to protect you from ever experiencing it again. It's for you.
mm,
Seem like that because it hurts or it's a lot of anxiety or anger, but
yeah.
unconsciously you know why you're doing it. So when you heal that hurt and pain, that's great. But sort of like nature abhors a vacuum, you pull out all that anxiety and that anger. It's like, well, what do you want to fill yourself up with? Just because you pull out the anger and you heal the wounds and you heal the hurt and pain and the anxiety is gone, doesn't mean you're filled with happiness and joy. Maybe you are, but
Yeah.
more than likely you've not wired yourself for that happiness and joy. So now it's time to strengthen. I mean, there's two parts of getting healthy. It's losing the body fat that you need to lose and then strengthening the muscles.
Mhm, mhm.
Those are kind of two different things that both improve your health, but you have to focus on both. And of course, that combination of building muscle will burn fat. That's maybe not the greatest metaphor, but
Yeah.
you have to heal the pain and the hurt just by, throwing tons of happiness and joy on top of it doesn't mean you're going to cure that child who is uh, dealt with so much trauma. If
Mm,
that's the case, if that's what was the, I mean, maybe it happened to you as an adult. Certainly we can hurt and be wounded as adults, but sometimes this happens when we're a child, we don't even remember, or it's too scary, we don't want to remember.
right.
And so we put it behind the curtains, so to speak, of our unconscious minds, but you're still allowed to heal.
Mm,
Even if you don't need to discuss it if you don't want to,
right.
just heal it. It's computer programming.
Mm,
And I don't want to make it to sound like it's so simple and easy, but sometimes it's that simple and easy,
yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Having the awareness that it's possible, I guess, is a great starting point, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think because of people's maybe past experience with talk therapy or maybe some healing modalities, they think, well, maybe I'm just stuck with this.
Mm,
And the issue with some of these modalities is you look outside of yourself for healing, and sometimes you need to do that. If my appendix is about to burst, take me to the hospital and take me to a surgeon. If I'm
mm,
in a car accident, if I break my leg, take me to the hospital. And certainly you need a second pair of eyes on things. Every athlete, every champion has a coach.
mhm.
Every gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal, every Olympian has a coach. Certainly musicians and I mean Pavarotti, one of the greatest opera singers of all time, was going to a vocal coach every year.
Yeah.
So you need that second pair of eyes, but sometimes I think we look outside of ourselves because we don't know why we hurt. We don't know why we're in pain. And we think, oh, this person will tell me what's wrong with me and tell me what to do about it. And they don't know.
Mm,
They don't know you. That's why it takes months to get to know you. That's why they ask all those questions. They want to get to know you and maybe start figuring out what's wrong with you. And we look outside of ourselves thinking we don't have the ability or the power to heal. So
mm,
we look to somebody who has training in this kind of work, and they will heal me. And it doesn't really happen that way.
mm.
And there's some great therapists out there who will tell you that, but sometimes when doing that work, you kind of get your wheels spinning in the mud, and you're not moving anywhere. And it's because you're not working on the core issue because you don't know what it is because it's unconscious. So when I work with people, first off, we generally start off with a phone call just to chat, consultation call just to make sure it's a good fit, explain a little bit more about hypnotherapy is all about. But if they want to move forward, I'll send them an intake form. I understand we talked on the phone, we understand a bit about what they want to work on, but I want some more details if they want to give it.
Yeah.
And on the intake form, I have people who write 7, 8 very detailed, very specific paragraphs of what they've gone through in life and what they want to heal. Perfect. That is wonderful. I have other people who just write one word anxiety. That's fine too.
Mm,
That is what we'll work on. I am not here to fix you, nor am I here to tell you what you need to fix. So if you just want to work on the anxiety, then that's what we'll work on. That means something to you. And that's what we will work on, and that's what you're here to heal. So you know what the problem is. And more importantly, you know what to do to fix it. That's how powerful you are. Again, maybe not with your conscious mind,
right.
but we're dealing with that unconscious part of mind. Neuroscience says conscious mind, that analytical, logical, goal-oriented planning part of mind only makes up 5% of mind. That highly emotionalized and automatic part of mind that holds on to our habits and runs our immune system and our digestive system and holds on to that hurt and pain, that makes up 95% of mind.
Mm,
And so why would that 5% conscious mind be able to create deep healing if it doesn't know what the problem is? If
right.
it's hidden within, behind the curtain of the subconscious mind. But what's so fascinating about this and what's so powerful is you're the one who hid it behind the curtain. So open up the curtain or just, you know, wrap it up in the curtain and throw it away. You don't, we don't have to do big analysis around this. Sometimes, like a great analogy is like sometimes we hold on to a pin in our hand very tightly. And sometimes we hold on to a pen so tightly for so long, it starts feeling familiar to us. And then we're holding on to it. It's so familiar, it starts feeling comfortable. It's comfortably miserable, but it's comfortable. And we hold on to this pen for so long, it's so familiar, so comfortable that sometimes we think that this is who we are,
Right.
but it's not. Just drop the pen. And you don't need to know how a pen is made. You don't need to know what color ink it is. You don't even have to know what ink is and what it's made of. Just drop the pen.
Right.
Maybe it's useful to know what color ink it is. Probably it's not. It's like hiking out in the wilderness with a 25, 30 pound backpack on. After a while, it's just like, yeah, this is familiar. This is uncomfortable, but it's just the way it is and it's who I am until you get to that spot where you want to camp and you take it off. It's like, oh, this is freedom.
Mm,
Just take off the back. Do you need to know what's in the backpack to take it off? No, just take it off.
mm.
Maybe you know what's in there. Maybe you don't. Maybe somebody else packed it for you. Just take it off. And again, I don't want to make it sound that it's so simple and easy, but sometimes it's can be that simple and easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Very true.
it's powerful work. You are that powerful. Change and healing happens in an instant. Again, so why not use that power you have? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If I could
Sure.
change our direction of the conversation
Sure.
a little bit now. Excuse me. Um, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she's begging me to ask because she was with me when I was doing some research. And you have a program called Ace Any
Oh,
Test,
oh yeah.
and she's right in the middle of doing tests at the moment. So she'd love me to ask you the question: is there some simple practice that you can share here with the listeners on what you teach in that program?
Yeah. A, a lot of test anxiety, and whether you're a 10-year-old, an 18-year-old in high school taking, and here in America we take the SATs or the
Hmm.
ACTs or whatever tests they are, and nowadays, whether you're a university student, maybe you graduated law school and you're taking the bar exam, or you're a real estate agent needing to get licensed or certified. Here in America, auto mechanics, electricians, firefighters, everybody's taking tests to get certified, to get licensed, let alone, if you're in school. And a lot of times that anxiety comes from fear of failure,
Hmm.
fear of being judged, and oftentimes it comes from a bad experience.
Right.
We don't like losing. We don't like getting F's or D's on tests. It's humiliating. It's embarrassing. Oftentimes we get in trouble with our parents,
Hmm.
let alone at school, or we got held back a grade, or we have to go to summer school or after school too. Tests, and if I, ran the world, tests would just be, here's where you are and here's where you need to improve. You don't know your times tables. Okay, well, do you need a tutor? Do you need to do extra work? What do you need to do to catch up to the point where you need to be so you can move on to the next grade or whatever? But instead, oftentimes it's a form of seeing if how badly you fail, and you're punished for that. You don't get to go out with your friends. You don't get to go to the dance. You don't, and we don't like that. That's pain. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do it again. And so we fear the potential pain of maybe not doing well on tests, even if you know all the information.
Right.
And so in terms of anxiety towards a test, of course, I'm only talking about situations where you actually know the material. If you don't know the material, yeah, maybe you should be a little anxious about taking that test because you're probably not going to do well if you haven't been studying, if you've been goofing off and all that. But a lot of the times, what's frustrating is you know the material,
Hmm.
backwards and forwards. You could teach the class.
Hmm.
And yet you get to that testing site, you get to the classroom, you get, nowadays it's all online and on laptops and things. Where you're taking the test, you get to it and all of a sudden you close down because what if I don't know the answers? Oh, this question is worded weirdly. I don't understand what, and you start to get stressed and panicked. And part of the issue is you stop breathing. And
Right.
we only breathe into the top part of the lungs. Feel where your lungs, your rib cage it's like 2 inches from your hip bones. The lungs are huge. The lungs are huge for a reason. But if you only start breathing at the top of your lungs, you're only breathing like 1/10 of
Mm,
your lung capacity. This brain of ours takes 20% of the oxygen you breathe in. And so by breathing slowly and gently, filling up your abdomen, like blowing it up like a balloon, you can flatten out your diaphragm and get air into the bottom of your lungs. So I know it's obnoxious and a little simple to just tell people, oh, do some deep breathing, but that is first the key you
mm,
need is to fill yourself with the nutrients you need to fuel your brain for rational, calm thinking.
right.
One of the issues is if you're not oxygenating your brain properly, your brain will start to panic because it's not getting the fuel it needs. The feeling state of panic is anxiety. So, one aspect of this is just breathing deeply, slowly, and gently. Another aspect, if we can do a little exercise real quick, let's run through this. It's a really wonderful exercise called 3-2-1 reset. It's something you do before a test.
Mm,
And let me think of something. Let's do two things. Especially kids are great at this. First off, let me backtrack a bit before we fill ourselves up with the good stuff. Um, the feeling of anxiety is a literal feeling state in your body, and so you can feel where it is. And so if you're listening to this while you're driving the car, of course, don't participate in any of the exercises we're going to do because I might ask you to close your eyes or something. Just clock where we are in the interview and then come back to it. If you're watching the kids around the swimming pool, if you're cooking with fire, don't, only do this exercise. You can focus on this particular exercise if it's safe for you to do so. But when you start feeling that panic and anxiety, a lot of people just push it aside and ignore it. So when it's at that level 2 or 3, zero being the most peaceful we ever felt, 10 being the most panicked and anxious, it's a 2 or 3, you ignore it. Well, it's no big deal. And then you're in the middle of the test and it gets to an 8, a 9, a 10. That's pretty hard to deal with, especially in the middle of the test when it gets to, emergency levels like that, when the lights and sirens are going off in your head. So if you can become aware, especially if you know this is an issue for you, walking into a test, sitting down, let's say you're in a classroom, sitting down on your chair, feeling your feet on the floor. Just take a moment to close your eyes and scan your body. Do a check of your nervous system, how you're feeling. Are you feeling a bit nervous? Are you? Well, then where do you feel it? Well, some people may feel it in their chest. Their chest is maybe getting tight and constricted, or they feel it in their heart or their gut. Maybe their stomach is getting upset. Maybe their throat is getting tight, or the low back is starting to hurt, or their head starting to, whatever. Wherever you're feeling, just notice where you feel in your body and what color is it. So if I was to ask your daughter or anybody, whether you're a 9-year-old or you're a 70-year-old wanting to become a real estate agent as a second career, I'd ask you, where do you feel that anxiety in your body? What color is it? There's a color to it. What does it feel like? Is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it heavy? Is it light? Start describing it.
mhm.
And is it big? Is it small? 0 to 10, where is it right now? 0 being the most peaceful, 10 being the most panicky you ever felt. Oh, it's about a 4, it's a 5. Okay. This is disassociating you from all that stress and anxiety. So you're noticing that it's not a part of you. It's that backpack you're wearing.
Right.
Now, here's one, and in some certain circumstances, I'd ask you just to pull it out. But it's like this red blob of heavy goo in my head. Okay, pull it out. Well, you're not going to want to do that in a classroom, or if there's a camera and the teacher's watching you or something for an online class or something. You're not going to start pulling it out. That looks weird. So another way of doing this, feeling your feet on the floor, vacuum it down to the center of the earth. Pretend, just imagine, as if you're daydreaming, or pretend that a big, huge vacuum tube's coming up from the center of the earth, attaching to the bottom of your feet, and it sucks it all out down to the bottom of the center of the earth, where it's transformed into positive energy, just like a tree changing oxygen, carbon dioxide into oxygen. Vacuum it all out, and make sure you get everything else out as well. And now that you've done that, now you've rid yourself of that feeling state of the anxiety. Breathe in deeply. And if it's appropriate, and safe for you to do so because it might not be if you're in the middle of a class. Breathing in and exhaling with a sigh. Ah. Now, of course, in the middle of class, you're probably not going to want to do that. So this might not be appropriate. But if you can do this before class, um, it would be very appropriate because we have this vagus nerve that comes out of the back of our head. You have all these 12 nerves. It's that thing when you touch a hot pot and a signal goes up your nerve to your brain. It tells you you're touching a hot pot to let it go, and then it goes back down. You let it go all within a millionth of a second. Well, we have the 10th cranial nerve is called the vagus nerve. And vagus is Latin for wanderer because it attaches to the eyes, to the ears, to the muscles of your jaw, goes past your throat, attaches to your heart, to your lungs, and to your gut. Now, the two parts of our nervous system that are appropriate uh, for this discussion that we're having is the sympathetic stress response and the parasympathetic relaxation response. We need to be in the parasympathetic most of the time. This is when all the systems of our body, immune system, digestive system, respiratory, circulatory, all of it is getting the appropriate amounts of energy, fuel, blood supply, oxygen needed to work at optimum levels. When we're stressed, that gets pulled away so we can get into fight or flight mode
Mm.
and protect ourselves. That's what's happening when you're taking a test. If you're feeling that anxiety, you need to turn that off. Go back to the parasympathetic. Well, this vagus nerve that attaches to your eyes, to your ears, to the muscles of your jaw, to your vocal, goes past your vocal cords, heart, lungs, and gut, is a big part of that parasympathetic nervous system. It's attached to your lungs. Breathing again in slowly, gently, and deeply. It's attached to your lungs. So that gentle, deep breath stimulates the vagus nerve, therefore activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This isn't hard. It's really simple stuff. But it's again, I know it's somewhat obnoxious to tell people just to take a deep breath when they're anxious.
Mm.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's literally you have been given everything you need to turn off the stress response. A
Yeah.
deep breath into your abdomen, those big belly breaths. As we get older, we want to look at the wedding, we want to look at the high school reunion, and so we suck it in, and so we tighten. And that's another big problem is when we're stressed, we tighten those stomach muscles, waiting for that 1-2 punch. So you got to release and let go. Fill your belly with air into your lungs, activate that sympathetic nervous system, or parasympathetic nervous system. If it's appropriate and it won't disturb anybody, breathe in deeply, fill up your lungs. One more. Ah. The reason uh, sighing audibly, humming, singing, oming when you're meditating, the reason that feels so good is because the vocal cords are vibrating and therefore stimulating the vagus nerve, therefore activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Humming, singing, sighing, deep breathing. On top of a lot of us keep our um, tension in our jaws. We grind our teeth, we clench our jaw. So do some jaw yoga.
Mhm.
Again, vagus nerves attached to the muscles of the jaw. So well, we keep it in our shoulders. You want to change your state, change your body, and breathe. So if you're slumped over and you're taking your test and you're typing, okay, gotta move your body. And this again, hard to do if you're sitting in a test in a classroom full of people, but you can move your shoulders around. Nobody's going to be upset about that. You can move your neck around. You hear my neck cracking, probably if you're wearing headphones. You know, jaw yoga, release those muscles. Shake out your arms again if it's appropriate and you're allowed to do so. Shake out your arms, shake out the muscles. Right there will reset your nervous system. But let me show you a way to actually hack your brain. And this is that exercise I started off with a few minutes ago. It's called 3-2-1 reset. It was developed by Richard Nongard, wonderful psychotherapist and hypnotherapist I've done a lot of training with over the years, conferences and workshops and things. And he developed this simple little process. Teach it to a 9-year-old, teach it to an 80-year-old, teach it to your friends once you've heard this. This is how simple this exercise is. But it'll reset your nervous system and literally hack into your brain and change your brain chemistry just within about 5 minutes. And so the threes, we're starting with three slow, gentle, easy breaths. If it's appropriate, and it won't get you in trouble with the teacher or the testing site or whatever, just ah. And after you breathe a few times, we're gonna create bilateral stimulation because when you're feeling that panic and that anxiety and that stress, you're lighting up a part of the right side of the brain. To light up this part of the brain, it needs fuel, it needs nutrients, it needs oxygen, it needs blood supply. Where's it coming from? It's pulling it from these other parts of the brain. It's vacuuming up, pulling it, sucking up all that energy to light up so you get panicked, you get fearful, you get afraid, you turn on the stress response, and these other parts of the brain go dark. So how do you undo that? Well, you can very simply just move your body. Now, I got my little squeezy ball here. For people who are just listening, I'm going to hold my arms out, outstretched like in a T or a cross. And I got my little squeezy ball. It could be a tennis ball, a racquetball, a pen, pretty much anything. But just pass it between your hands in front of you. So I'm just passing this ball right in front of you, moving my arms back and forth, grabbing the ball in front of my sternum, and then making that T again. To do this action, I have to fire brain cells in my brain. It needs blood supply, it needs oxygen, it needs fuel, it needs nutrients to operate this part of the brain. Where's it coming from? It's going to pull it away from that anxiety and panic. You don't need the anxiety and panic, but I do need energy to start moving my arms around. That's one way of bilateral stimulation because we're operating this brain because right side of the brain is controlling the left side of the body, left side of the brain is controlling the right side of the body. Another way of doing it is drumming on your knees. If you remember back in school, you remember maybe at a meeting, even recently, somebody was drumming on their knees. They're not hyper, they're not ADHD, they're nervous. And this right hand, left hand slapping the knees is bilateral stimulation. They're calming themselves down. They probably don't know they're doing it, they just know it makes them feel good. Walking, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. That's bilateral stimulation. That's why walking feels so good. That's why I think talk therapy actually should be done outside,
Mm.
walking. Especially guys. Guys don't want to sit across from another person staring into each other's eyes, being vulnerable. At the very least, you should have two treadmills in your office. Let's go for a walk on the treadmills if it's bad weather outside. That's how men want to talk. And then you got that left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot going on. Man, so much healing would happen if, when I rise to power, this is how the world's gonna work. But we're doing this bilateral stimulation. What we're gonna do in 3, 2, 1 reset is we're gonna grab our shoulders. And this is bilateral stimulation because we're grabbing onto our shoulders, but you obviously notice right away this is a hug. You are hugging yourself. Just like grabbing that hot pot and that signal going up to your brain, we're sending a signal up to our brain. Only this is nurturing, loving, healing touch. And if you're just grabbing your shoulders, or if you're, um, giving yourself a bear hug, or you're doing the havening technique, which is rubbing your hands up and down your arms, it feels good. Nurturing, loving, healing touch, even if you're giving it to yourself. This is now turning off the adrenaline and cortisol, is creating GABA, the hormone GABA in your brain, which is dissipating all the adrenal cortisol. So you can now create oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, the feel-good hormones. You are literally hacking your brain. And then we're going to supersize this by thinking of somebody you want to give a hug to. And this could be a person in your life. It could be your good friend, it could be a family member, spouse, a child. If it's a 9-year-old, it could be your horse, a dog, a cat, a parakeet. It's imaginary, so it can be whomever, whatever. It could be somebody who's no longer with us, maybe your grandmother or your grandfather. It could be somebody you've never met before, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Joan of Arc. Your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined, and will change your physiology to match what you're thinking and feeling. Just like having a nightmare in the middle of the night, doesn't matter how crazy that nightmare is. A cheeseburger's chasing down the street throwing a coconut at you is ridiculous. It's not going to happen. And yet, even in deep sleep, it'll change your physiology, turning on that adrenaline and cortisol, creating those neuropeptides of fear and anxiety turning down your immune system, your digestive system to put all that blood into your big arms to fight this cheeseburger. Even in deep sleep, you're changing your physiology. That's how powerful you are. So
mm,
imagine taking control of that. And so by breathing slowly and deeply, by hugging yourself, hacking into your brain, and breathing audibly if you can, and then thinking of that person you want to give a hug to, just for 5 minutes, you will put yourself in a more resourceful, resilient state of mind and body. You'll lower your blood pressure, and you'll actually turn on 1,300 different processes to boost your immune system because you're turning off the stress response, and all that energy goes back to your immune system and empowers it. So you get stronger, and your immune system gets more empowered. And so this is a simple little exercise, 3, 2, 1 reset. Breathe in deeply, fill your lungs up so you enrich your brain with all the nutrients it needs, all the oxygen it needs for rational, calm thinking. If it's appropriate and it's safe to do so, hum or let out an audible sigh. Hug yourself, and nobody's watching you. Nobody cares if you're doing this in a classroom. Hug yourself, close your eyes, and just think of a person you want to give a hug to. It'll literally reset your nervous system and hack your brain and turn off that adrenaline and that cortisol within minutes. And so that's a real easy one for people to remember. Uh, Again, the other one is the way to really change your state is body position and breathing. So we already covered breathing a lot, but again, body position. When we hunch over a lot, we're on our phones and we're hunched over. We're on keyboard, we're hunched over. Our bodies aren't meant to do this. It's only been in the last 150 years or so that we've been sitting behind desks,
mm.
and probably only really in the last 60 years that most of us have been sitting behind desks. We were farmers. We were working in factories. Before that, we were hunters and gatherers. We've been moving. And so to change your state, move your body. Where are your shoulders? Pretend there's like a cord or a string on your chest and pull your chest out. Move your shoulders around. Get the blood flowing up into your shoulders, and especially move your jaw around. Again, a lot of us clench our jaw, we grind our teeth when we're stressed. So move your jaw around. It looks silly, but nobody's watching you, nobody cares. Move your jaw around. That's a real easy one to do in a classroom. But another one, another quick one, and I'll kind of wrap it up and go over it again real quickly to remind everybody. And I'll send, you know what, Wayne, I'll send you some links to like some worksheets and things that people can have to remind them how to do all this. But another one is the wide vision technique. When we are stressed, we singularly focus, we have that tunnel vision. We're looking at the threat, which is great when we're being chased by a bear. It's great when there's a rattlesnake in the trail. It's great when we're being attacked. But this is not so great when we're taking a test, because what this does is it turns off our peripheral and focuses all on one issue. And therefore, our brain sort of turns off on all these other aspects so it could look at the danger. Only the test is not a dangerous situation. And so a one way of of turning off that stress response that is easily done in a classroom or online if you're doing it on a laptop is, if you're feeling stressed, focus on a spot across from you on the wall. Maybe there's a map, maybe there's a picture, maybe there's a window, but focus on a spot and then look all the way up, look all the way down, look all the way to the left, and look all the way to the right. And what you're doing is you're opening up your peripheral. So you want to look to the left as if you could see your shoulder, or maybe even behind your shoulder if you can. Don't move your head. Keep your head perfectly still, but move your eyes all the way to the left. See how far to the left you can, and then move your eyes to the right. See how far to the right. Move your eyes up. See how far above, how far below. You can also roll your eyes in a circle to do the same thing. Roll your eyes in the other direction. Bilateral stimulation. This is what that EDMR therapy is all about. If people know that therapy of going through a traumatic experience and then rolling your eyes around, they think that why that works is because of bilateral stimulation. You're calming your nervous system down through right brain, left brain hemisphere activity, and associating that calm and peace with the traumatic event. So then that anxiety dissipates. So you can do that in a classroom. Roll your eyes just slowly. You don't want to give yourself a headache or vertigo or anything. Roll your eyes in the other direction. Look up, look down, look to the left. But then another kind of a part two to that is focusing on that spot. And this is probably, I'll just do this for the demonstration. You probably don't want to do this in a classroom. But for demonstration purposes, focus on that spot in front of you and then slowly open up your vision to the sides. So I'm just following the edges of my hands as I spread them out and move my hands to basically the position of my ears and see how long I can track my eyes while keeping my head perfectly still. I can track my hands to the side of my as I move them to the side of my head. What's that's doing is opening up my peripheral vision. If I'm opening up my peripheral vision, I must be safe. If I'm safe, I don't need the stress response. If I don't need the stress response, I'm going to turn it off because it takes too much energy to run. And so that's those two exercises. I guess there's kind of three. So let's quickly just go over them real quick. Just the breathing. If you got okay, I'm sorry. I started off with the vacuuming out. So with your feet on the floor, notice where that anxiety you may be feeling, and you can do this in a meeting, do it at a restaurant. Just notice where you may be feeling that anxiety. What color is it? What does it feel like? Rough, smooth, heavy, soft? And vacuum it out to the bottom or to the center of the earth. Or maybe there's a big red ball underneath you or something. And that's vacuuming all out. Just vacuum out all that. Your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Again, that's why a nightmare feels so scary. Even it can be stupid and crazy and ridiculous. Yes, I know vacuuming out your anxiety, your red blobby anxiety to the center of the earth is ridiculous and stupid. But your mind and your body thinks you're doing it. That's the genius of this. Yeah.
Craig, I'm going to have to stop you. I apologize, and
Oh, that's right.
it's really engrossing. I'm visualizing as you're talking there. We're way out of time. I'm sorry. So
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
we're
Should have
going
asked
to
you.
have to wrap up our conversation. We'll put links to all of
Yes.
the places people can find you. Clearly, anyone listening to this conversation can see that you have a wealth of knowledge and ability to help people if that's what they're looking for. Where's the best place people can go to
Probably the
connect?
best place. Again, I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, so I called my practice Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. Though nowadays I work around the country, around the world, work with a lot of people in Australia, New Zealand, and England, and Vienna, and around America. Just go to Google, type in Flagstaff Hypnosis, and you'll see me. Arizona Integrated Hypnotherapy or aceanytest.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Craig, absolutely enthralling conversation. Thank you so much for being on the ET project.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm sure our listeners have got so much out of this. I think that we probably have to come together again for another
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
And
100%. Yeah.
yeah, but really appreciate it. And yeah, look, all the best for Christmas, which is coming around the corner.
Coming in soon, and appreciate you too. God bless you for doing this work because I know doing a podcast is a lot of work and kind of a thankless work. So appreciate you inviting me onto the show and yeah, well, let's do this again at some point.
Thank you.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.